All right, welcome back. All right, welcome back, everyone, to JFace Games. Today we're talking about I wrote Terra Mystica, and that's not what we're talking about. We are talking about Civilization New Dawn, the board game. And why am I bringing this up? Well, I just had this idea, and I just want to float this idea by you guys because I'm curious. So, Civilization New Dawn is, if you've ever played Sid Meier's Civilization, it's the newest iteration of that in board game form. They had a Civilization back in like 2012 that came out in the board games. It was great, but it was very complicated. And Fantasy Flight Games tried to simplify it and create a new version of it, and it's called Civilization New Dawn. It came out probably 3-4 years ago now, but they recently, like last year, had the expansion for it come out, which is called Terra Incog something. I forget the name of it. But I love this game. I love Civ games in general. And so here's New Dawn, and they really tried to streamline the concept of this game a lot. And I want to show you one mechanic that they fixed in the expansion. It's the core mechanic of the game. And so here's the basic mechanic of the game. Is you have this row of cards, right? And it's these 5 cards. And each one of these cards is a different action type. One of them's like military, one of them's like production, one of them's culture, one of them's arts, etc., whatever. And above it, it shows a different type of terrain and a number, 1 through 5, and it goes from grasslands to mountains. So least, difficult terrain to most difficult terrain. Okay. Now, the way this game works is that on your turn, you pick a card, and that's the card that you're going to be using as your action. It's that simple, right? Now, each card has nuance behind what the action means, but say I pick this card, okay, I'd then play it, and I would then take it and put it in the 1 spot, and everything else would shuffle down, right? So now this card would be in the 1. Now, why does it matter what positions it's in? The further it is to 5, the more powerful it is, right? Because it either has like the number 5 as a multiplier, or you can actually do that in the type of terrain, and mountains are more difficult terrain. So each one of these cards has a power that takes effect based on the location it's at, and based on the location, it's going to be more powerful of a card. And so, in the initial game, there was a challenge of, well, why don't I just always do whatever card's in the 5 spot, right? And that there was that to a degree, right? But the other thing that happens is you can level up these cards. So each card, then you can level up tech, which makes these cards more powerful. And in the second game, they gave you more incentives to use different cards in different rows. And you had other abilities where maybe the card, once it gets used, it doesn't go below the 3rd spot, or it moves in a different spot, etc. But it's a really fun mechanic because in essence you're taking one action, and depending on that tableau and where the cards are, you're going to decide which one you're going to take. So now think about the game we've designed so far, and what if you had a character sheet that was this, in essence, right? You had these 5 spots with 5 cards. And let's say those 5 cards are controller, leader, striker melee, striker ranged, and defensive, right? Something like that. And let's say you could level up those cards, that would level up, and you'd have different cards you would plug in to those spots. And now, granted, I think this is probably a little bit more, maybe this falls into more of like a Descent Gloomhaven style RPG as opposed to an actual, or board game as opposed to an actual RPG. But I think that there's some power behind this. I think it might be really interesting to see how you would then design this sort of game. So then you might have this really interesting dynamic where it's, yes, I'm going to do something defensive, and so I want to push that up to the 5 spot. But maybe I'm a defensive character, so the furthest that can go down is to this spot, right? When I use it, it goes down there. And there might be some issues here in terms of like, well, if I want to be able to do fighting and defensive, but they keep getting pushed down to the 1 and 2, what is that like? How does that work thematically? And then how do I boost that back up? Well, maybe you have team abilities where it's like another player is able to help you boost yours, or you're able to do, different powers, or maybe, positions on the board, you're able to move things around. Who knows, right? You can always manipulate and manage a core mechanic. The concept is first have the core mechanic. So that's the basic mechanic idea. I'd be really curious what you guys think. Hit the subscribe button, hit the bell, and we'll talk to you soon.